Every morning, the young waitress noticed the same old man, quiet, polite, always sitting in the corner with his black coffee and a gentle smile. She'd talk to him, help him carry his food, sometimes even sneak him an extra muffin when he looked lonely. Weeks turned into months, until one morning, the old man didn't show up. Instead, four men in suits and dark glasses walked through the door and said they were his lawyers. The cafe went silent as one of them asked, "Are you the waitress who used to serve Mr. Daniels every morning?" She nodded, confused, and then they slid a thick envelope across the counter. Inside was a letter from the old man, and something that would change her life forever. It was a quiet little diner on the corner of Maple and 6th Street, the kind of place where the coffee was always hot, the jukebox always played old tunes, and the regulars always sat in the same booth. For 5 years, Emma had worked there as a waitress. She wasn't rich, not even close. Her dream of going back to college had been put on hold after her mother got sick and the hospital bills piled up. Still, she was the kind of woman who smiled even when life didn't give her a reason to. Every morning at exactly 7:30 a.m., an old man would walk in. He wore the same gray overcoat, carried the same small leather notebook, and sat in the third booth by the window. His name, she later learned, was Mr. Henry Daniels. He never caused trouble, never complained, and never asked for anything more than a simple breakfast: black coffee, 2 scrambled eggs, and wheat toast. Emma didn't think much of him at first. To her, he was just another customer, quiet, reserved, polite. But after a few weeks, she began to notice the details. The way his hands trembled slightly when he held his cup. The way he stared out the window long after his food had gone cold. The way his eyes softened whenever she asked, "How's your morning going, Mr. Daniels?" He always replied the same way, with a small smile and the words, "Better now that someone asked." That sentence stuck with her. One rainy morning, when the diner was nearly empty, Emma noticed Mr. Daniels struggling to open a sugar packet. His hands were shaking worse than usual. She hurried over, tore it open for him, and poured it into his cup. He looked up, embarrassed. "Thank you, dear," he said softly. "These old hands don't listen to me like they used to." Emma smiled. "That's all right, Mr. Daniels. I'll be your hands until they do." He chuckled. It was the first time she'd heard him laugh. From that day on, their friendship grew in small, quiet moments. She'd refill his cup before he asked. He'd tell her stories about the world he once knew, how he'd been a businessman in his younger days, how his wife had passed away 10 years ago, and how his son moved abroad and never called again. Sometimes, Emma would listen and wonder what it must feel like to have everything, and then slowly lose it all. One afternoon, when her shift was ending, she noticed Mr. Daniels sitting outside in the cold, struggling to button his coat. Without a thought, she ran outside and helped him. "You remind me of my wife," he said softly, looking up at her with tired eyes. "She had your kindness." Emma smiled sadly. She must have been a lovely woman. "She was," he whispered, "and you would have liked her." After that, Emma started saving a fresh muffin for him every morning, even if he didn't ask for one. She'd hide it under a napkin, pretending it was an extra order by mistake. Mr. Daniels always played along, pretending to be surprised. Months passed, seasons changed. The snow fell, melted, and fell again. But Mr. Daniels always came, always at 7:30, always in the same seat. Until one day he didn't. Emma didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he was sick, or the weather kept him home. But when a week passed without him showing up, she started to worry. She even called the hospital just in case, but there was no record of him. Days turned into weeks, and slowly she realized the old man might never come back. Still, she kept his booth clean. Every morning she poured a cup of coffee and placed it at his seat, just like always. Some of the other staff teased her for it. "Emma, he's not coming back," her manager said. But she didn't care. For her, it was a small way of saying thank you for the stories, the warmth, and the strange sense of peace his presence always brought. Then one ordinary Tuesday morning, everything changed. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Emma looked up, expecting to see one of her regulars. Instead, 4 men in black suits walked in. They were tall, serious, and moved with the kind of presence that made everyone in the diner go silent. Behind them, another man entered, holding a leather briefcase. Emma's stomach dropped. These weren't customers. The man with the briefcase approached the counter. "Are you Emma Carter?" She hesitated. "Yes, why?" He nodded to one of the bodyguards, who placed a thick white envelope on the counter. "We represent the estate of Mr. Henry Daniels." Her heart stopped. "Mr. Daniels," she whispered, he's gone." The man nodded solemnly. "Mr. Daniels passed away 3 weeks ago." Emma's hands trembled as she picked up the envelope. I'm so sorry. I didn't even know." The lawyer's expression softened. "Before he passed, Mr. Daniels left specific instructions. He said, and I quote, 'Give this only to the kind waitress who made my mornings worth waking up for.'" Emma felt her throat tighten. Tears welled in her eyes. She took the envelope, barely able to breathe. "What is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. The lawyer smiled faintly. "You'll want to read it somewhere private, but Miss Carter, I think you'll find that Mr. Daniels never forgot your kindness." The men turned and left, leaving the entire diner staring in stunned silence. Emma just stood there, frozen, the envelope heavy in her hands. Her manager whispered, "Emma, what's in it?" But she couldn't speak. All she could do was sit down at Mr. Daniels' empty booth, the same one she'd cleaned every day for months, and stare at the cup of coffee she'd poured for him that morning. Outside, the sun had just started to rise. The same light that had always touched his table now fell across her trembling hands. Whatever was in that envelope, she knew it was more than just words. It was the final message from the man who'd quietly changed her life, and was about to do it again. Emma sat frozen in the booth, the envelope resting on the table in front of her like a secret she wasn't ready to uncover. Around her, the diner buzzed softly, plates clinking, coffee brewing, but her world had gone still. Her hands trembled as she turned the envelope over. Her name was written across it in neat, careful handwriting, the kind only someone from an older generation still used. Emma Carter. Below it, in smaller letters, "Thank you." Her throat tightened. She slid her finger under the seal and pulled out a folded letter. The paper smelled faintly of cologne, the same scent Mr. Daniels used to wear. Her eyes blurred as she began to read. "My dear Emma, if you're reading this, it means I've finally gone where my wife has been waiting for me. Don't be sad. I lived a long life, longer than I ever expected to after she passed. You made my final days brighter than you'll ever know. You reminded me that kindness still exists in the world, that even a simple cup of coffee, served with a smile, can mean something when the rest of your life has gone quiet. You once told me you couldn't afford to go back to school. You said life had other plans. Well, sometimes plans change. There's a man named David Ross, my attorney. He'll help you with what I've left behind. Consider it a thank you, not just for the breakfasts, but for the humanity you gave me when I thought the world had forgotten how to care. Henry Daniels. P.S. Order yourself a muffin. This time it's on me." Emma couldn't stop the tears from falling. She pressed the letter to her chest and cried quietly, her heart both heavy and full. For weeks she'd wondered what happened to him. Now she knew, and yet this letter didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something she didn't yet understand. Later that afternoon, after her shift ended, Emma walked out of the diner holding the letter and the lawyer's business card. The name David Ross gleamed in gold print. She took a deep breath and called the number. A deep, professional voice answered. "Ross and Henley Associates, this is David Ross speaking." "Mr. Ross, hi," Emma said, her voice shaking. "My name is Emma Carter. I was told to contact you about Mr. Henry Daniels. There was a pause, a respectful silence. Then, Miss Carter. Yes, Mr. Daniels spoke of you often. I was wondering when you might call. He did. Yes, Ross said. He made it very clear that you were not to be forgotten. If you're available tomorrow morning, I'd like to meet you at our downtown office. 10 o'clock. Emma hesitated. Sure, I'll be there. When she hung up, she stared at her reflection in the diner window. The tired eyes, the messy hair tied back under her uniform cap. She didn't feel like the kind of person lawyers met with. But for Henry, she would go. The next morning, Emma arrived at the glass building on Fifth Avenue, a world away from her little diner. She walked through the rotating doors, clutching the letter like a lifeline. The receptionist led her into a polished office with dark wooden shelves and sunlight streaming through tall windows. Behind the desk sat David Ross, a man in his 50s, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Miss Carter, he greeted warmly, please have a seat. She nodded, sitting nervously as he opened a thick folder labeled Henry Daniels, Estate. I won't take much of your time, Ross said gently. Mr. Daniels prepared everything months before he passed. He was very particular about his wishes. Emma folded her hands in her lap. He was always careful. I don't understand why he left something for me. I didn't do much. Ross smiled faintly. He disagreed. He said you gave him something he hadn't felt in years, compassion. He reached into the folder and pulled out a set of documents, sliding them toward her. Mr. Daniels owned several properties. He sold most of them before his passing. What remains are two things he wanted you to have. Emma blinked, confused. Two things. Ross nodded. The first is this. He handed her a small velvet box. Inside was a gold locket with an old photograph, a woman smiling beside a much younger Henry Daniels. That's his wife, Ross explained. He said you reminded him of her kindness. He wanted you to keep it. Emma brushed her thumb over the photo. She's beautiful. Ross nodded. She was. Then he continued, his tone shifting. The second item is a bit more significant. He slid another paper across the desk, a property deed. Emma stared at it, reading her name in disbelief. It's a house, Ross said simply. The one Mr. Daniels lived in before moving to the nursing apartment. Paid off, fully furnished, and now legally yours. Emma's mouth fell open. This can't be real. Ross smiled kindly. It's very real, he made sure of it. Tears welled in her eyes again. Why me? He had a son, I know he did. Ross's expression grew distant. His son declined any inheritance. They hadn't spoken in years. Mr. Daniels wanted his remaining assets to go somewhere they'd matter. He said you'd do something good with them. Emma pressed a trembling hand over her heart. I don't even know what to say. Then don't, Ross said softly. Just live the life he wanted you to have. That night, Emma walked through the house that now belonged to her, a cozy brick home with creaky floors and the faint scent of cedar in the walls. Pictures of Henry and his wife still hung on the mantel. Books filled the shelves. It felt like stepping into someone's memory. In the corner of the living room sat a piano, old but polished. A note lay on top of it, written in that same careful handwriting. You once told me you loved music but couldn't afford lessons. The piano's yours now. Play something when you miss me. Emma laughed through her tears. Oh, Henry. She sat on the bench, pressed a key, and the sound filled the quiet house. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, and for the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt before, peace. The next morning, she returned to the diner with the letter folded neatly in her apron pocket. Her coworkers crowded around her, asking questions, eyes wide with disbelief. Emma, you serious? He left you a house. She nodded, smiling softly. Yeah, but it's not about the house. It's about remembering that kindness matters even when no one's watching. The manager chuckled. You're like a real-life fairy tale. Emma laughed. Maybe, but I think it's just what happens when you treat people like they matter. As she poured coffee into the same old cup that once belonged to Mr. Daniels, she whispered quietly, "Thank you, Henry." And somewhere in the stillness of the morning light, it felt like he was smiling back. Weeks passed since the day Emma discovered what Mr. Daniels had done for her. Life began to settle into a rhythm again, familiar, but softer somehow. The diner still smelled like coffee and toast every morning. The bell above the door still jingled when regulars came in, and Emma still wore the same faded uniform. But something in her had changed. She carried herself differently now, not with pride or arrogance, but with quiet gratitude. She no longer saw her life as small or ordinary, because in one man's final act of kindness, she had learned that even the smallest gestures could ripple through a lifetime. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that Henry's gift wasn't meant just for her. Every time she walked through his old house, her house now, she noticed new details. The bookshelf filled with stories about compassion, philosophy, and giving back. The framed quote near the front door that read, "Do something today that your future self, or someone else, will thank you for." And then there was the attic. She hadn't been up there yet. One Saturday afternoon, curiosity got the better of her. She climbed the narrow wooden stairs and pushed open the creaky door. Dust swirled in the sunlight, illuminating stacks of old boxes and papers. She knelt and opened the nearest box. Inside were journals, dozens of them, all labeled with years. She flipped one open and began to read. Each entry was written in Henry's careful, looping script. He wrote about his wife, their travels, the company he built, and later, about the loneliness that came after she passed. But then she found the last journal. Its first entry dated a few years ago, the year he began coming to the diner. Met a waitress named Emma today. Kind eyes. Reminds me of Mugrat. She doesn't know it, but she saved me from another silent morning. Emma pressed her hand over her mouth as she kept reading. She brings me coffee like it's the most important thing in the world. I don't think she realizes how much that means to someone who spent years being invisible. Tears fell freely as she turned the pages. The final entry stopped her cold. I don't have much time left, but I've realized something. The world doesn't change through grand gestures. It changes through small acts of goodness that spark others to do the same. Maybe Emma will understand that someday. Maybe she'll carry it forward. She closed the journal, tears streaking her cheeks. That night she sat by the window with a cup of tea and thought about those words. Carry it forward. She decided she would. The next morning, Emma made a choice. She walked into her manager's office at the diner, hands trembling slightly, and said, "I'm giving my notice." The manager blinked. "You're quitting." Emma smiled softly. "Not quitting, just moving forward. There's something I need to do." She spent the next few months pouring her energy into something new, a dream she hadn't even known she had until Henry's letter. With help from the lawyer, David Russ, she began converting Henry's house into something special. The Daniels Place. It wasn't just a name, it was a mission. The Daniels Place became a cozy community cafe, half coffee shop, half resource center. A place where people could get free meals if they were struggling, find job listings, or just sit and talk without being rushed. The same booth Henry used to sit in was kept exactly as it was, a tribute to him, with a small plaque that read, "Dedicated to Henry Daniels, who reminded us that kindness never goes unnoticed." The opening day came in early spring. The air smelled of fresh coffee and hope. Dozens of people showed up, some out of curiosity, others out of gratitude. Local news covered it, calling it a diner with a heart. Emma stood near the counter, watching as families laughed, strangers shared tables, and people who might have gone hungry found a warm meal. Her heart swelled. And then something unexpected happened. A man in his 40s walked in, tall, well-dressed, with eyes that looked strangely familiar. He hesitated before approaching her. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Are you Emma Carter?" "Yes," she said. "Can I help you?" He swallowed hard. "My name is Michael Daniels. Henry Daniels was my father." Emma froze. "You're his son." He nodded slowly. "I didn't know about you until recently. Mr. Russ contacted me after my father passed. I didn't take the news well at first." He looked around the cafe. "But then I heard what you did, what you built here." Emma's voice softened. "Your father was a good man." Michael looked down, guilt clouding his face. "He was. I just didn't realize it soon enough." She smiled gently. "He forgave you, you know. He never said anything bad about you, just that he hoped you'd find peace." He blinked rapidly, his eyes glistening. "He used to talk about a waitress who treated him like a person, not a burden. I thought it was just another one of his stories." Emma chuckled softly. "Guess I was real after all." He laughed weakly, shaking his head. "You've done something incredible here. I think he'd be proud." "I hope so," she whispered. Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. "There's one last thing. This was found in his safe, meant for you. Mr. Russ said I should deliver it personally." Emma opened it. Inside was a simple gold key and a note. "For the next door you choose to open, Henry." Her eyes filled again. He always knew exactly what to say. Michael smiled. "Yeah, he did." Months later, the Daniels place became more than just a cafe. It became a symbol, a local story people told about how kindness from one stranger changed everything. Emma started a scholarship fund in Henry's name to help students from working-class families go to college, the dream she once had to give up. Every morning she'd open the cafe doors, pour a cup of black coffee and place it by the window booth, just the way Henry liked it. And sometimes, when the morning light hit the glass just right, she swore she could see him sitting there smiling. One evening, as she locked up, she looked up at the sky and whispered, "You were right, Henry. Small acts really do change the world." The wind rustled softly, almost like an answer. Emma smiled, turned the cafe sign to closed, and walked home, ready for whatever next door that golden key would open. Moral of the story: kindness never dies. It echoes from one heart to another, from one act to a lifetime.